What's your message?
Good afternoon. This is Ryan speaking. If you are ready, you now have the floor.
Everybody's muted.
Thank you, Ryan. I'd like to welcome everybody to the July Planning Board meeting for the county. And if we'll go ahead and call the roll, Miss Austin, please.
Fred Austin.
Present.
Faye Barefoot.
Present.
Don Brown.
Present.
Naomi Buck.
Present.
David Davenport.
Here.
Brad Guth.
Here.
John Landron.
Present.
Steve Little.
Here.
Tucker Moore.
Present.
Now, we have a quorum.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, if we can take a moment for silent prayer, please. Thank you. Now, if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the
to
flag
the flag of the
United
United
States of America and to the republic
for which
for which it stands,
One
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty.
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I believe everybody should have received a copy of the minutes. If there are any corrections or comments that need to be made, I'll discuss those now, or I will take any motion to approve the minutes.
Motion so moved.
Right, I believe.
Second, Don Brown.
And was that Faye that seconded?
Don Brown did it.
Don Brown second. I'm sorry. Tab, if you would do a roll call vote, please.
Fred Austin.
Approved.
Faye Barefoot.
Approved.
Don Brown.
Approved.
Naomi Buck.
Approved.
David Davenport.
Approved.
Brad Guth.
Approve.
John Landron.
Approved.
Steve Little.
Approved.
And Tucker Moore.
Approved.
All right, our next item on the agenda is public addresses to the board. Ms. Otten, did we have anybody sign up to?
No, sir.
Okay. We'll move on to the fifth item on the agenda then is our development review with Dakota Creek. I believe Mr. Bryant is going to address that for us.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have Dakota Creek preliminary plan. This plan is located on County Home Road, south of its intersection with NC 102. The Swift Creek Township, zone rural agricultural, 37 lots, 41.6 acres. The owner is Dakota Creek Corporation. This is an aerial view. You can notice Aiden's ETJ and the intersection of County Home and NC 102. This is a closer view here. This is located near the 102 grill. This is an overview of the plan. Dakota Creek Drive is proposed as public. There's a cluster box unit located in the front. They'll have landscape buffers along the state maintained road, county home road. And they have their open space as required. And note they do have an access easement that runs along that lot 12. The site is zoned RA. That's a 30,000 square foot minimum lot size. One new street is proposed, Dakota Creek Drive. The electricity is provided by Greenwood Utilities, water by Eastern Pines Corporation. The conditions and requirements on this plan, an erosion control plan will be required for this project. Further review of the stormwater calculations are required and must be submitted with a construction plan. This development may require installation of best management practices and/or payment to be approved and paid to the private mitigation bank or environmental enhancement program to meet the nitrogen loading requirements of the Pitt County Stormwater Ordinance. This payment must be made prior to approval of the construction or SESC plan. If BMPs are required, all BMPs must meet the requirements of the Pitt County Stormwater Ordinance and must be designed according to North Carolina BMP manual. If BMPs are required, the owner will be responsible for maintenance of all stormwater BMPs. A stormwater maintenance agreement is required. If BMPs are required, all BMPs must meet the requirements of the Pitt County Stormwater Ordinance and designed according to the North Carolina BMP manual. And that is a redundant comment there. Apologize. The North Carolina Department of Transportation approved mailbox cluster will be required and must be shown on the construction plan. Pitt County Environmental Health septic systems must be approved prior to final plat approval. No applications have been received on this project at this time. Greenwood Utilities approves this plan. Eastern Pines Water Corporation will be able to supply water. NCDOT, this subdivision must follow NCGS 136-102.6, compliance of subdivision streets with minimum standards of the Board of Transportation required of developers. This plan shows 24-inch roll curb for this subdivision. The NCDOT division does not allow roll curb and requires standard 2.6 curbing as per DOT standards. NCDOT will allow access for lots 26 and 28 along SR 1725. Please arrange such for minimum conflict points. This is a view of the site from County Home Road. This is a view looking along County Home Road. Again, looking along County Home Road, this time facing NC 102. This is a view along NC 102 of the existing properties. And again, the current site conditions. Technical Review Committee has recommended conditional approval. Adjacent property owners have been notified and staff has not received any inquiries in regards to the proposed development. And at this time, we'll take questions from the board.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Are there any questions from the board about the conditions and requirements for this preliminary plan?
Like everything's been covered.
All right. Are there anybody in the audience that wanted to speak to this, Mr. Bryant?
No, sir, not that I'm aware of.
All right. So if I'll entertain a motion to approve or deny this conditional approval or conditional request.
Motion to approve for conditional.
All right. That's Faye Barefoot.
Right.
Is that second from Mr. Landron?
Yes.
All right. So Ms. Otten, if you could do a roll call vote for us.
Fred Austin,
Approved.
Dave Barefoot,
Approved.
Don Brown,
Approved.
Naomi Buck,
Approved.
David Davenport,
Approved.
Brad Guth,
Approve.
John Landron, sorry,
Approved.
Steve Little,
Approved.
and Tucker Moore.
Approved.
Right. Thank you very much. The preliminary plan has been approved. So we'll move on to item number 6 on our agenda, which is an administrative matter, and it's to transition into in-person meetings. Mr. Rhodes, I believe you're going to address that.
Sorry for the delay. Still trying to get RJ online with us tonight. So with that, I appreciate everyone being with us tonight. We have one follow-up item, an administrative item from last month. And of course, the board agreed to revisit this particular item as we're trying to get back to a more normal setting with our public meetings. So with that, I wanted to provide more information. It was in your package, really a strong recommendation from our county manager about boards and commissions moving back to an in-person format for their meetings. With that said, staff is recommending that we follow that strong recommendation and begin meeting in person again at our August meeting, which will be next month. Just so you know, the Board of Commissioners did meet in person and this past Monday night. And at that point, they met at the Agricultural Center. But they also agreed at that meeting to resume their meetings back in the normal Eugene James Auditorium, which is the place where we have been holding our planning board meetings in person as well. So, Mr. Chair, that's our recommendation that the board consider tonight, taking action on resuming in-person meetings in the Eugene James Auditorium starting next month. I'll welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the planning board members, or do I hear a motion to approve this recommendation to go back to in-person meetings?
I move that we accept the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Mr. Little's made the motion to move back to in-person meetings. Is there a second?
Second, Don Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Ms. Otten, could you do a roll call vote, or
Yes, sir.
unless there's any discussion? I'm sorry, I should have. Is there any discussion on the motion on the table? All right, hearing none, if we'll do a roll call vote, thank you.
Fred Austin,
Approved.
Dave Barefoot,
Approved.
Don Brown,
Approved.
Naomi Buck,
Approved.
David Davenport,
Approved.
Brad Guth,
Approve.
John Landron,
Approved.
Steve Little,
Approved.
and Tucker Moore.
Approved.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see everybody next month in
Thank
person.
you.
Number 7 item on the agenda is the subdivision ordinance amendments. Mr. Bryant, I believe you were going to discuss those.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize. It does not want to show the presentation. It wants to show presenter view. Yep. The subdivision ordinance amendments. Staff is proposing adjacent property owner notification. This was discussed at a previous meeting, and this will establish a notification requirement for major subdivisions that are considered by the planning board. Adjacent property owners located within 500 feet of the parcel being subdivided shall be notified of the planning board's consideration of the preliminary plat at least 10 days prior to that board meeting. Staff is also proposing a minimum width. This will provide a standard width for new lots, and they must maintain that width. All lots would need to be at least 40 foot measured in any direction, provided the parent parcel allows such. I have an example here as a plan you may recall seeing previously. And we noted that there are a number of terms here that are concerned for on-site septic. And this language would prevent a configuration like this. This is another lot, an example of what could be an extreme, but if you'll note, this lot 48 runs all the way around and then back around to lot 46. And I've noted here that this lot does meet all the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, and the septic system along this lot is piped along roughly a 10-foot wide leg/panhandle. So if there was ever an issue with this septic system, it might be difficult to know where to repair or to have access to that. And if you'll note, the easement there at the top is a drainage easement, and I don't see a note that is an access easement, so that would be a challenge. If the board were to consider the subdivision ordinance amendments, the staff has proposed, the timeline would be at our August meeting that we would hold a public hearing for review and recommendation. In September, the Board of Commissioners would hold a public hearing for consideration and adoption. And then October 1st, it would be effective. And at this time, would the board like to present any questions?
And Mr. Chair, I'd just like to mention also, Jason went ahead and drafted language into the notification letter that went out to the property owners that were within that radius for the current preliminary plat that you just dealt with. So that language has already been drafted based on what the planning board advised at the last meeting. So that's what we intend to move forward with, unless you've seen any changes that you'd like to have made to that particular notification. So that notification really is what we would continue to work with if this amendment is passed forward by the planning board onto the Board of Commissioners. So just want to make that clear that we're already starting to incorporate that new language.
Did everybody have a chance to look at that notification letter? There was discussion about that and changes were made.
It's on page 21 of your agenda package tonight. And just also, in your package, Jason provided some research that he had done on our listserv, our planner's listserv, about different criteria used for some of these strangely configured lots. We also brought in the environmental health staff to talk about this because typically these strangely configured lots are a result of some septic system, off-site type septic system areas. And they also have looked at this language and concur with what's being proposed tonight.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for staff about the language in the amendments? Can we, Jordan, can we pass both of these together, or is this something that needs a motion for each of the different?
I mean, the board can take formal action, but I think really this is kind of a preliminary review. It'll be brought back to you in August. That's when the board would have to take some type of formal action. But if everyone's agreeable, there's no formal actions necessary tonight, in my opinion.
Thank you for that clarification. All right.
What we would like though, Mr. Chair, if you would go ahead and formally take action to, and we'll go ahead and start scheduling the public hearing and properly noticing it for your next meeting, which would be in person.
So we just need to have a motion to schedule a public hearing. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, I prefer that.
Hey, James,
Yes.
could I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Just curious, and maybe I'm just overlooking something, but even in this letter that went out, in the site information, is that different than what we just talked about earlier as far as number of lots and acres?
Well, there were some adjustments to the plat at one point in time. And Jason, would you like to address that?
Yes, so the developer owns the portion up there closest to NC 102.
Yep.
And the requirement would be for a stub out, since there are also homes already existing. The developer opted to add those lots and individualize the home sites there. So there was an increase afterwards for the number of lots, but they were reviewed by the technical review committee.
Super good.
That's a good catch, Mr. Little. So yes, there was a change in that preliminary plat before it was actually brought before you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Is there any other questions? Do I hear a motion to have schedule a public meeting for the next planning board meeting in August?
So moved.
Mr. Little motioned. Do I hear a second?
Second, David Davenport.
David, thank you. Ms. Auten, if you could call the roll, please.
Fred Austin,
Approve the motion.
Dave Barefoot,
Approved.
John Brown,
Approve.
Naomi Buck,
Approved.
David Davenport,
Approve.
Brad Guth,
Approve.
John Landron,
Approved.
Steve Little,
Approved.
and Tucker Moore.
Approve.
Right, so we will have a public hearing at our August planning board meeting for the subdivision ordinance amendments. Item 8 on the agenda, starting into our informational items. Mr. Rhodes, I believe you're going to handle those as well.
Yes, sir. Just wanted to bring you up to date. We had our first staff meeting in person just a few weeks ago, and we were in the process of wrapping up, of course, last fiscal year and then moving into this fiscal year. And I'm just really proud of staff, especially during the pandemic, the amount of work that has gotten done, especially with all those ordinance rewrites. And you guys dealt with a lot of that as well as the NC 43 South Land Use Plan, which was a little challenging toward the end. So nonetheless, we had a very successful year last year. We're moving into the new fiscal year, so we've included in your package, and I realize it's probably small print, but a lot of new projects coming online, and some of those are certainly going to be things that you'll hear about in the upcoming months. First and foremost is the comprehensive land use plan update. Ours right now is about 10 years old, and as you know, with the new planning legislation that went in place, it is imperative that we have an up-to-date and current plan. We feel like we've kind of lengthened the time span for the existing one because we've done some small area plans in some of the more rapidly developing areas, such as NC 43 South and the Southwest Bypass area. But nonetheless, we know we need to touch on some of those other areas within our planning jurisdiction. So within the next year, we'll be kicking this off. Probably you'll start hearing more about it within the next 3 months or so. So just know that's on its way. We're also in the process of updating our comprehensive transportation plan, and we'll be bringing some of that information back before you within the next few months as well. Some of your regulations that Jason mentions from time to time with development plans, the tar PAM stormwater regulations, our water supply watershed regulations, those are being mandated for update over the next year, so you'll be seeing more about that too. You've heard a lot about Census 2020. Those numbers should be coming out in the next month. With that, especially for our office, that automatically means we're in the process of updating the voter districts for Pitt County. We've been involved with that for the last 3 decades now. So we're already starting to get that in place. Since the numbers are coming back a little bit later, we really have a compressed time frame to get those new voter districts in place. We'll be kicking that off in August when the new census numbers come in. Of course, we have some ongoing programs, both with community development and our homeless programs. Just yesterday, we had our annual community development sessions, and we had about 40 households that attended that session and are interested in applying for some of our home repair programs. So we'll be busy again with that next year. And as always, we seem like we just can't shake flood recovery. We're still wrapping up some of the Hurricane Matthew programs, and we know we've got some Hurricane Florence programs that will be starting to kick off within the next month or two. Hard to believe it's been 3 years ago and these programs really haven't been initiated yet, but our buyout program for Hurricane Florence should start very soon. So that's the main informational item. We have some other items just to bring you up to date on. Tab has included in your package the natural gas and pipeline safety information that's been provided by Greenwood Utilities. There's been a lot of natural gas pipeline work done within our community within the last couple of years, so it's even more imperative that folks are aware of that. Several rezoning requests or zoning related items have been handled by the Board of Commissioners. The two that you dealt with a couple of months ago, the Baldwin request and the one for Mr. Culver, both were approved by the commissioners. At Monday night's commissioners meeting, this was a special use permit extension request. That's for a solar farm. That's handled through another review process that did not come before the planning board, but just to let you know, the board did review and approve the 6-month extension for that. Just mentioned some community development programs, housing repair programs. Our office, and Jason's very much involved with this, our 2021 NC Housing Finance Urgent Repair Program. We just received that funding, gone through the approval process, and we'll be rolling that out next year. That will amount to hopefully 10 homes being repaired. And most of these homes would receive maybe a new roof, a new heating and air conditioning system, something like that, that would allow folks to continue living in those homes. And to wrap up everything, we do have a few other items included in your agenda report or in your agenda package. But Tab has just this afternoon sent to you the UNC School of Government Board workshops. And this is right on the heels of some of the training that Jordan has provided as far as legislative actions. If you want another refresher course on this, we'll be glad to pay for your participation in that remote workshop. Tab sent that information to you today. And Tab, what was the deadline that you gave folks to let you know about that?
It's Friday, August the 6th.
So if you can certainly let Tab know if you're interested in that, we'll pay for it, of course, through your per diem account. And we really encourage your participation in that if you're interested.
James,
So with that, yes.
James, did you say these are virtual workshops, or are they going to be in person?
They are virtual workshops through the School of Government. So they're not just for Pitt County, these are going to be statewide. So you'll probably hear a lot of discussion from other boards throughout the state, and probably some of the same questions you might have, they have as well. So really encourage you to consider participating in that. There are two different options now. One's a daytime session, one's a nighttime session.
Thank you, sir.
And again, Mr. Chair, you're always, a lot of this information we've been over tonight is on our website, and that's listed on this screen. And with that, that's all the items we have, unless you have some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Are there any questions from the board members? I do want to share one personal note. I'm not going to be at the meeting next month, and I think Mr. Little is our vice chair, so he'll have to preside at the meeting. So hopefully, Mr. Little, you'll be able to take those responsibilities on. And I heard at the beginning of the meeting that Tucker Moore may have something to share with us. Maybe not. I'm not. He's looking at his eyebrows raised there. He's good. Okay. Well, then, if that's all that we have tonight, I'll have a voice acclamation that we adjourn.
Moved, aye.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank y'all.
See you in person next month. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.